This week on Business Brief, the characteristics of Generation Z as entrepreneurs and the challenges they're navigating. Then, how a researcher hopes to use blockchain technology to build trust in restaurants. Welcome to Business Brief, Missouri Business Alerts podcast focused on the business news and issues shaping the state. My name is Noah Grabianski, and I'm joined by my co-host, Riley Hindle. Riley, how are you doing this week?
Good. It has been extremely busy, but hopefully light at the end of the tunnel soon. But I am very excited because I got football this weekend, and then I'm gearing up for St. Louis Renaissance Festival next weekend.
Ooh, I've never been to a Ren Fair, but I'd love to go.
Oh, they're so fun. They're so fun.
We're recording this on a Thursday, and the Cubs have a huge game tonight, so I am, trying not to worry about that all the time. But,
You're at Wrigley now, right? So it should be okay.
Oh, I hope so. But anyway, how about we get into some headlines?
All right. As the federal government shutdown stretches on, President Donald Trump on Tuesday suggested that some of the nearly 600,000 furloughed federal workers might not receive back pay once the government reopens. That runs contrary to a 2019 law signed by Trump ensuring federal employees are compensated after a shutdown. Congress has previously had to approve retroactive funding after a shutdown with new legislation. House Speaker Mike Johnson has said legal justifications for denying back pay could be possible.
Governor Mike Kehoe floated plans to consider using state funds to keep the Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Program afloat if the federal government shutdown continues. The program, which provides food, education, and counseling to about 96,000 Missourians per month, could run out of federal funding within the next 2 weeks. Kehoe has not addressed whether he expects Missouri to be reimbursed any state funds paid out during the shutdown. After years of budget surpluses, the state expects the funds to narrow to $700 million by the end of the next fiscal year, which does not factor in any expenses related to the shutdown.
The Missouri Supreme Court declined a request from Bayer to hear an appeal of a $611 million verdict awarded in a case claiming that the company's Roundup weed killer caused the plaintiff's cancer. The ad tech and pharmaceutical giant inherited the Roundup lawsuits when it acquired St. Louis-based Monsanto in 2018. Now, the company is waiting to hear if the U.S. Supreme Court will take up a separate request it made in April.
Governor Kehoe has submitted a waiver requesting to shift the focus of the state's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. If put into effect, the new restrictions would support the purchase of whole and minimally processed foods, such as fruit and vegetables, meat, dairy products, and whole grains, among others. It would, in effect, prohibit the purchase of candies, sodas, highly processed foods, and other sugary drinks and foods available through the SNAP program. The waiver would also incentivize the purchase of locally grown and produced products and make hot, ready-to-eat rotisserie chicken eligible for the program.
The Missouri Department of Economic Development has released the state's final proposal for a $700 million investment to bring broadband internet to underserved areas. Missouri has the third most locations in the U.S. with less than ideal internet access, according to the Office of Broadband Development. The proposal plans to provide 81% of targeted locations with fiber-based service, while saving nearly $1 billion in allocated federal funds. This proposal is the latest step towards finishing Missouri's largest broadband connectivity investment to date.
Torch Electronics, the owner of certain gray market slot machines, was found to have unfairly forced a competitor out of 20 locations by a federal jury. It is the first time a court has approached the question of whether or not these machines violate Missouri's gambling laws. The company claimed that the machines were quote-unquote no-chance games, meaning that the player could see the outcome, thus failing to meet the definition of a gambling device. The court has not yet ruled on this matter. The jury verdict includes a $500,000 payment to Sullivan-based TNT Amusement Incorporated as compensation for its losses due to unfair competition. Our first block this week takes a look at what Generation Z is doing to break into entrepreneurship, which I believe is a story you reported, Riley.
Yes, I am so excited to finally talk about it because I've been working on this story since the summer. So Gen Z, which includes you and me, is made up of those born between 1996 and 2010. While some are still at the beginning of their careers, many are showing entrepreneurial tendencies. Nearly 1 in 5 in that age group have considered starting their own business.
So that's a lot of potential entrepreneurs. But what differentiates Gen Z from all those generations of entrepreneurs before them?
Many of the challenges are similar. You wear a lot of hats as an entrepreneur, it's a 24/7 job, but increased economic uncertainty as they seek to grow their businesses and the rise of the digital age have been some factors that have played a role. I spoke with a number of Gen Z entrepreneurs and entrepreneur supporting organizations about the challenges and strengths facing this new batch of business leaders. Here's more of that story. For Gen Z Missourians disillusioned with corporate careers, entrepreneurship has become an attractive alternative.
I've taken on this challenge, what I'll call it, because, like I said, at the end of the day, I feel like it's very liberating to be able to have your own means of success or failure. Win or lose. You did what you did for the better or for worse. So I feel like that's very fulfilling.
That was Isaiah Colbert. He's the owner of Play Event Co., a Kansas City business that provides equipment and services for events. At 27 years old, he's a member of Generation Z, roughly defined as people born from 1996 to 2010. They're becoming an increasing part of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Entrepreneurs ages 18 to 24 accounted for nearly 25% of total entrepreneurial activity last year, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. Kelsey Raymond, the executive director of entrepreneurship programs at the University of Missouri, said some of the strengths of Gen Z founders are curiosity, autonomy, and creativity.
And I use the term creative pretty broadly, that I don't mean they're necessarily a great artist or a musician or something like that, but creative and problem solving. That when they hit a roadblock, when someone tells them no, it's not just oh, well, I guess there's no other way to do it, but there's a mindset of, I'm sure there's some workaround. I'm sure there's something different we can do here.
Jordan Alford is a senior program manager at Kansas City Gift, a nonprofit organization supporting Black entrepreneurs. She says the internet, automation tools, and social media have played a large role in that process for a generation dubbed digital natives.
We now have AI and ChatGPT and tons of other AI strategies to be able to help. So, I mean, gone are the days where it's an excuse that, oh, I just didn't know, right? I mean, there are a ton of other opportunities out there for you to be able to connect with other or either organizations who have that information or online. But I do see them at least still fighting through those challenges to be successful.
Although Gen Z entrepreneurs have access to a wealth of information online, some still struggle with not knowing what they don't know. Kelly Grimes is the owner and founder of Soundcheck, a music practice space in Columbia. She says that while being young can be useful in garnering support, the lack of experience it brings can be difficult.
To probably have grown this a lot faster if I was 41 years old instead of 21 years old and had much more in my savings and had a lot more connections in this industry and a lot more credibility and I'd been around the block a few times and knew what the roadmap would be versus now a lot of that is not there. I don't want to discredit myself. I've gotten this far. Clearly I'm doing something right. So age has been a blessing and a curse.
That's where another strength of Gen Z comes into play: connections. Alfred said organizations like Kansas City Gift and other senior entrepreneurs and organizations that are willing to mentor the next generation have become a critical resource, especially amid a fluctuating economy.
I think that's something that the ones who are the Gen Z entrepreneurs who are successful, that's the one thing that they really do well, is they seek out people who are in other generations to say, how do we bridge the gap? You understand this industry, better than I have. How did this industry, what did it look like before? Where do you see things going? And what will this look like for me in 10 to 15 years?
Regardless of the challenges ahead, these Gen Z entrepreneurs have expressed that they are in it for the long haul.
I see this as my life's mission. I'm not rushing my life, this is going to be my life's work. This is going to be an evergreen company that will outlive me. I firmly believe that.
For our next blog, we're digging into new applications for blockchain technology.
Now, by blockchain, I'm guessing you mean like using some kind of digital record to track transactions across a network of devices?
Yes, but there is a little bit more to it than that in this case. A University of Missouri researcher took this concept and applied it to the restaurant industry, actually, as a way to allow customers to track where their food was coming from.
Huh, and what does this research hope to accomplish?
Well, that's what reporter Wei-Kai Wu sought to find out. She spoke with Pei Louis, an associate professor of hospitality management in Mizzou's College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, about her research.
Here's some of that conversation.
Thank you for taking our interviews. We really appreciate. How did you come to the idea of using blockchain, the technology that could allow consumers to track ingredients all along the supply chain?
I do have the answer for you, and I'm happy to participate in your interview. I think this idea really started from observing how the consumers' expectations in the food service industries have changed in recent years. So people now no longer satisfied with just knowing how their food tastes good or food looks appealing. So they want to know where it comes from and how it was produced and whether it is safe and sustainable. So at the same time, we have seen a rise in customer skepticism, and many diners are aware not all sustainability or food safety claims are fully verifiable. So there is a growing concern and demand for trustworthy and transparent information. So that is where blockchain comes from and comes in. So this technology offers a secure and traceable way to record every single step of a product's journey. Like in the restaurant industry and food service, it's from the farm to the supplier and finally to the restaurant table. So every transaction or the transfer of the ingredients is documented in this process and in a decentralized and tamper-proof ledger. That means the information cannot be altered or hidden, and that gives a customer a reliable way to verify the claims about the sourcing, safety, and quality. So I was interested by how this level of transparency might shape people's perceptions and behaviors. So would knowing this verifiable origin of their food makes them more confident about their choices, or would it influence their willingness to pay for their accessible options? So those questions led me to explore blockchain not just as a technological innovation, but as a psychological tool could reduce uncertainty and build trust between restaurants and their consumers.
So how did you find out the customers is actually very concerned about food safety, and how do you apply it into your research?
That's a very good question. So this growing concern about food origin and safety has been building from past years. So, and it reflects a larger cultural shift towards transparency, accessibility, and ethical consumption. So we started noticing this trend through multiple sources, including consumer behavior, research, industry reports, and real-world events. So at the same time, there has been a significant rise in interest in local foods, organic ingredients, and environmentally responsible dining. So that's why, in my research, I wanted to go beyond simply describing this trend and instead understanding psychological mechanism behind it, especially how uncertainty affects customer decision making. So we applied uncertainty reduction theory as the foundation of our study. So that idea is when people feel uncertain about the quality, safety, and authenticity of their food, they seek out the credible information to feel reassured. So that is where the blockchain technology comes into the picture. So it provides the technological solution that could directly address this information gap. So in the study, we found when the people were given access to this transparent information, their uncertainty decreased and their trust increased. So they were more likely to choose and even pay more for sustainable food options. So then by connecting these clear social trends with psychological theory and the practical technology, we believe we were able to explain how the transparency tools can reshape the dining experiences and also strengthen customer confidence.
So what's the most difficult part in your research and how you overcome it?
So we believe that one of the most challenging part of this research was helping the participants clearly understand what the blockchain technology actually is and how it applies to food service industry. So many people associate blockchain only with like cryptocurrency or finance. So the concept of using it for food traceability can seem abstract or even confusing. To overcome this, we spent last time designing clear, simple, and relatable explanations of how blockchain works in restaurant context. So instead of using technology terms, we create practical examples of people could like visualize the technology, such as how scanning a QR code on the menu could instantly show where the ingredients were sourced and how they were transported and when they arrived at the restaurant.
Thank you so much for this one.
It's now time for our words of the week. Riley, what's your word this week?
My word is gold.
Wow, I know you've reported on critical minerals a lot in the past. Have you suddenly renewed your interest in precious metals?
Well, I will say I definitely got some ideas kicking around that I want to follow up on eventually, but this week I'm actually referring to gold futures, which is a commodities trading option that allows investors to speculate on its future price without actually having to physically own the metal. It exceeded $4,000 per ounce for the first time ever this week.
And what's behind that massive rise?
So, with the government shutdown continuing, investors are looking for a safe place to invest their money. But prices started climbing even before that. Gold futures are up around 50% since the start of 2025 due to anxieties around tariffs and other economic uncertainties.
It sounds like I should go panning for some gold then.
You know, I have no clue where in Missouri you'd have to go for that, but sure, try your hand, see what happens. What's your word?
My word this week is river runner.
That sounds like the Roadrunner's cousin who lives on the lake or something.
What I'm actually referring to is Speedy, like the iconic, Looney Tunes character. The River Runner is Amtrak Missouri's train service, and it'll be adding a third daily service between St. Louis and Kansas City starting in April and running until June.
Nice, but why are they doing that?
Well, with increased travel anticipated for the FIFA World Cup games in Kansas City, Missouri's Department of Transportation is bulking up infrastructure across the state. The Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission approved $1.7 million in general revenue funds for the extra runs.
So is this Amtrak service the only new transit offering?
It is not. British Airways will also start offering 4 nonstop flights from London's Heathrow Airport to St. Louis's Lambert International Airport next year.
The fact that I can avoid the I-70 traffic with the Amtrak service if I want to is more than enough for me.
Well, we're in Columbia, so you're going to have to deal with I-70 one way or another.
Just shh. Let me dream that I don't have to sit in traffic.
And now it's time for our closing thought. For our closing thought, here's the owner of Play Event Co., Isaiah Colbert, on how entrepreneurs can find their footing.
Entrepreneurship is very similar to boxing, as to where you have to stay on your feet and stick and move. You gotta, throw a punch here and see if that works. If that's something that works for you, then there you go. That's your punch. You might stick with that, still stay on your feet and still moving. But if that's not something that works, you may have to find something different and still just keep moving, keep figuring around, find your route, find your alley.
Well, that is all for this week. The M33 Project provided the music for this episode. For my co-host Riley Hindle and editors Kayla Grimshaw, Trevor Grandin, Kelly DeRook, and Michael Stacy, I'm Noah Grabianski, and this has been Business Brief. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.